Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reserve Seating. We are wrapping up June-Sploitation with a very, very special guest, Rosalie. She's back. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great. Thanks for being here. So, Brad, what are we talking about today?
Oh, we're talking Euro-Sploitation, which means what? I'll just say Adam and I split the decision making process for reserve seating, and Euro-Sploitation came to me, and I sort of looked at some different definitions of the word, and we looked at different genres and stuff like that. And I have to say, completely by sort of just random letterbox list happenstance, kept coming across Day of Anger starring Lee Van Cleef as a sort of high ranked list for Junesploitation. Letterbox is really great because I just go
Mhm.
on and I search like people's lists, and I
Hmm.
just sort all the movies highest to lowest ranking and look to see if there's any consistencies, and then that's what I've been finding. So anyway, found this what I didn't know to be a pretty well renowned and well respected spaghetti western called Day of Anger, at least in English, starring Lee Van Cleef and some other folks. And not to, I guess, go too much into it, but I had a great time with it. I don't know, Adam, you seemed through text that you were pretty into this movie.
This movie grabbed me right from the beginning because I think it was like one thing I was maybe not trepidatious about, but like Euro-Sploitation, I'm pretty green with. Like I'm not any by any means an expert in European exploitation cinema. I've seen a lot of European cinema, but not like exploitation cinema necessarily. And then it goes right into the opening credits, and the scores Riz Ortolani, and I was like, I know this score from something, and it
Mhm.
was Django Unchained,
I'm saying, yep.
and it's in the scene where Christoph Waltz is training Jamie Foxx how to shoot. So I immediately felt comfortable. I was just like, oh, this is one of the movies that inspired Tarantino. It was kind of like having like his stamp of approval on it. So it kind of perked me up. And then the opening shot is like one of the best opening shots. It's of like the name of the town, but the fact that it like goes so aggressively from this kick-ass score like right to like boom and here's the town. I
Yeah.
was like immediately jazzed up about it.
I also am not an expert on exploitation cinema in Europe or really otherwise, but I had actually seen this movie before. So
Okay.
I don't remember fully how Andy came across it, but a few years ago, Andy went through a phase of like watching a lot of spaghetti westerns, and he was like, there's this one you have to see. Lee Van Cleef is in it, and I think you're going to really like it. So I had seen it before. I didn't remember that much about it, to be honest. So it was fun watching it again. And I think I liked it more this time even
Okay.
than I had the first time. But like you, like that opening credit scene really like sucked me in right away because it's very vivid color wise. Like you see close ups on the two faces and it's going back and forth and it's very like 60s and Andy Warholish. And I loved that. I loved the music. And I also think it's surprisingly, at least for what I've seen of Western, surprisingly like nuanced in that
Yeah.
there's not as much clear cut who the hero and villain are. It usually that's really clear in the westerns that I've seen.
It's the most Karate Kid 3 of the spaghetti westerns I've seen. Rob, are you like a Lee Van Cleef guy? Do you have much history with his
You know,
filmography?
I mean, not really. As much as I've seen the sort of the big westerns, like Patrick and I talked about this a few weeks ago. Like, I like westerns a lot. I don't know if I actually don't know if I'd say I love westerns, but I really appreciate westerns. I like to watch westerns. You can put a western in front of me, and I'll have a great time watching it. I'm actually in a very western headspace right now because I'm finishing up a rewatch of Star Trek Deep Space Nine,
Hmm.
which is basically Deadwood in space. And so I've been in a western like headspace anyway. I just watched The Gunfighter for the first time for another Junesploitation day, and I adored that movie. It's one of my favorites that I watched for Junesploitation, and so I was like so primed to watch this. And so no, I don't have, aside from your sort of Man with No Name movies and so on and so forth. Like I don't have a ton of experience with Lee Van Cleef, but totally. I mean, the camera loves him. You when
Yeah.
he's
Mhm.
on screen, there's such a great sort of sense of heroism, but also the sort of moral ambiguity that this character needs. I mean, he's a great hero and a great slime ball at the same time, which is so key to the character. But Adam, you're more of a Lee Van Cleef guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but I've seen probably like a half dozen of his movies, and like he's just like the king of the close-up. Like he just is
Mhm.
like the
Owns it.
camera loves him, and I just think that he's so even in like the Dollars trilogy, like when I'm watching for a few dollars more, I'm of the opinion, maybe it's like a minority opinion, but I think he steals the movie like from even Clint Eastwood, who's like, Apex Mountain, to borrow a phrase from The Ringer, like level great in those movies. One thing I really loved about Day of Anger is it kind of has that familiar, mentor protege thing of Django Unchained, but
Mhm.
then it flips like towards the end for sure. It doesn't follow that straight through. It has some twists and turns, and that's one thing that's also cool about it is it's not a movie about a setup. It's about a developing story that keeps going and developing nuances, as you said, Rosalie, all the way to the end. But I also really liked it from the standpoint of it's almost like a smaller story within what you would see in a bigger Western movie. So it's like, how did the henchman become the henchman?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I found that like really interesting because you always see in a Western, like whether it's Johnny Guitar or something like that, it's like, how did this person get linked up with this gang? And it's just like, these are the conversations that the leader of the gang would have to this person to like get them out of their kind of rudimentary station in life and elevate them and like give them confidence in a negative, twisted way and stuff.
It's probably the most obvious thing ever, but I thought so much about Unforgiven while I was watching this because so
Uh-huh.
much of it is about the sort of like breaking down the cliche of the Western and the Western hero
Mhm.
and all that, and like seeing the Lee Van Cleef character from the perspective of our hero, whose
Yeah.
name we'll get into, and I will butcher, and I apologize. That character seeing how important myth and gossip and rumor and reputation are, even for himself, and then reflecting on that is such a, it's there's so much like so much more to this than I thought there would be, and it was so great.
I am not as Western influenced as I perhaps should be, so I haven't seen like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly or the Dollars trilogy. Those are on my list. I promise to watch them. But I mostly know Lee Van Cleef from his film noir movies, like he's in Kansas City Confidential and The Big Combo. And in those, he's more of like a bit player or I mean an important supporting character, but like definitely the bad guy. So for me, it's interesting to see him in this role where he really starts out being rather heroic to, our true protagonist and like being a mentor to him. And that was an interesting switch because I was sort of primed to think he was going to be the bad guy. Then he seems like kind of a good guy for a while. And then, our opinion may change over time.
Not to spoil too much of this because I think we would all three of us
Mhm.
recommend this, and if you haven't seen it, you
Yes.
should check it
Yeah.
out. I really like that Van Cleef's character doesn't change. It's not like there's some huge twist or betrayal or action that really lets his corruption come forward. It's just the way that the other character sees him changes. He's still the same person he was at the beginning. It's just that
Mhm.
our hero's confidence and the way he views himself and those potential sort of father figures, they're sort of two competing father figures in the film. Um, that's what changes, and that's the kind of thing that you don't even in like a spaghetti western like this, like you don't always look for, and you're so happy when you see that level of nuance and subtlety that gives it that rewatch bonus. Because at the beginning, you're as enamored with this gunslinger as our lead is. And it's only after you really like, I love that everybody hates him, the Lee Van Cleef character. Like, everybody in
Yeah.
the town thinks he's this huge pain in the ass. And you're like, yeah, everybody would. That is how that would work.
Right.
It was made in 1967, but it's also like a movie that I think has been like elements of it have been picked up and moved to modern cinema. So like not only does it remind me of like Django Unchained, but it reminds me of like Revenge of the Sith and Training Day and things like
Mm,
that. Like
yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of those things in there. So I would say, if you're like us who are more on the novice side than the expert side of spaghetti westerns, like if you're a fan of those like modern type of movies with like kind of a twisted mentor protege father son surrogate type of thing, like you might really like this. Like it doesn't feel stodgy or kind of dusty to, not to be like too spaghetti western about it, but
And
like
it's a
Yeah.
it,
yeah.
It's incredibly well put together too. Like I again like
Yeah.
going and looking at the filmmakers, and then looking at sort of the screenplay and Tonio Valeri, the director, whose work I don't know a ton about. Again, not a spaghetti western expert. Adam,
I
you
saw this was his second movie, his
yeah.
Okay.
second spaghetti western, but he was like a staple of spaghetti western movies
I know
after.
the only other title I recognize is My Name is Nobody, which is I have seen probably on like a New Beverly, poster
Yeah.
somewhere, but have never.
Sure.
This might honestly be like if I were to show a class a spaghetti western, like I
Hmm.
think like this is such like a platonic ideal of it because it's I mean the music and the set design, obviously the acting, the language gaps and all that stuff, but really well, incredibly well put together, befitting
Yeah.
really strong script.
Yeah, I
I
like that it's a good entry point because it doesn't have the baggage attached to it of being a big name.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not a Clint Eastwood. It's not, one of the ones that you see on the Mount Rushmore of Westerns. And so that almost makes it more accessible, but you still get the flavor of having that more like Eurocentric vision of the West.
so I got an important question for the two of you. Could Rick Dalton have played Scott Mary?
Depends on when in his career,
Yeah.
not after he'd been playing the heel for so long, but he
Not
could
when
have
he
done it when he
goes,
was young.
not when he goes to Rome to win
Okay.
fucking fight.
That's what I was getting at. Like if
Yeah.
Al Pacino pitch him
No.
Day of Anger?
I
Dave
don't think
Eggers,
so. He would have had to be the Lee Van Cleef in Day of Anger.
yeah. He could have done the
I can
lead
see
man
that.
clean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At that point in his career. Yep.
I really liked the choreography in this movie. Like the fight scenes are really well
Yeah.
done, and the
Mhm.
gunfighting in particular. Like some movies, I find it super cheesy and easy to tell that it's like all very stagey, but it felt gritty without being like too, I don't know, over the top with it, if that makes sense. Like
I
I
love
enjoyed seeing all that stuff.
I love the way that the movie got really inventive, but not too inventive with the like, here I'm gonna give you my gun, here it is. Oh, I'm gonna shoot
Mhm.
you like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
did that like six times, but every time
Mhm.
it was like I like near the end he like flips the gun up like he's gonna drop it, but then catches it and shoots him. Like
Oh,
there's
that was so
Yeah.
cool.
So
so
cool.
silly, so silly,
Yeah.
so silly, but like in
Yeah.
that spaghetti western way, that's like also kind of
Hmm.
great, like it's
Yeah.
so
All right. No, I'm so glad that like we wrapped up the month with this with like a real discovery. Like I think this is of all of the movies I've watched for June-Sploitation, like I'm not saying like I ironically like some of the other movies, but some of the other movies like The Dungeon Master, it is what it is.
yeah.
So, but this is I think like objectively like a really great Western and
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it. So,
What did you guys think of Giuliano Gemma? I think that's how you say the name of the guy that plays Scott,
yeah.
the protege.
He grew on me. Like I think like maybe just because um everybody like he's introduced where everybody he's like dragging barrels of shit
Exactly, and
like
he
that.
wears the poop
Endears
coat
you
for
to
like
him.
half the
Yeah,
movie, and
I
I can
mean
smell him through the screen.
everybody's talking about like what a stupid asshole he is for like the
Mhm.
first 30 minutes of the movie. So I think it kind of like rubs off on you. But I'm 80% of the way of buying where he lands by the end of the movie. The only thing like I don't really buy is I feel like they shortcutted like how he became such a skilled gunfighter.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I because I other than saying like he's a total natural, I don't know like
Mhm.
that he's almost as good as Lee Van Cleef like in that short of amount of time, but
That makes it seem like it's really easy to learn how to be a good gunfighter.
It
it could
does.
be.
I mean,
It
he
could
did get
be.
that
Yeah.
lesson from his friend, about how to like,
Oh, with the barrel and the
press it and
sight
all
and
that. All
stuff.
that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, also kind of speaks to like, is Lee Van Cleef that good? Like, doesn't that kind of also feed into that idea of like the power of the mythic hero, like the power of like how
Sure. Because is
people
it all the
say,
swagger that makes it
people
work?
say you are this way. You don't actually have to do that
Mhm.
much,
I don't know. I mean, like when he was getting dragged and Scott Mary throws him the gun, he takes out those guys like in quick
That's a
succession,
good
or he
point.
sees the sign and
That's
he's
true.
Let's go with Rosalie's idea then that it's actually just not that hard to be a good gunfighter. I was looking at my notes trying to find if I wrote down his character's name, but the name of the friend, the guy with the one eye, Dr.
Oh
oh,
Dr.
yeah.
Jacoby from Twin Peaks. I kept thinking he looked like Russ
That's who
Tamblyn.
I was thinking of too.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
I think
Dr.
his name
Dr.
is
Jacoby.
Blind Bill.
Blonde. Okay.
Pepe Calvo, according
Okay.
to Wikipedia. Yeah.
Okay.
I just got so distracted because thinking that this movie takes place in the Twin Peaks universe. Because like, what is Dr. Jacoby doing in this old West town?
That would be awesome. He did look so much like
Secretly
him.
prescribing illicit medications and all that stuff.
Yeah,
That was
Could
that.
Rick
yeah,
Dalton have been on Twin Peaks?
Well, young or old? That's the question.
Well, he would have been old by that point.
Yeah, I get
sure.
at that. So early '90s Rick Dalton, age
Yeah.
appropriate Rick Dalton. So he would have been that would make him what in his like '60s at that point, late '60s.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, he could have done. Let's see, he could have done Ben Horn. He could have
Sure.
done. He honestly he could have done Russ Tamblyn. He could have done that.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have liked to see him as the Don Davis role. I would like to see him as Major Briggs. That would have been very interesting.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or just make him Bob.
No, I can't do that. No, we can't have that.
I'm smiling and laughing because I've never seen an episode of Twin Peaks, but
I know.
I genuinely enjoy your enthusiasm.
DiCaprio's Log Lady. Yes.
There you go. That's it. Rick Dalton
There
as
you go.
Rick Dalton as the log lady.
I feel like this should become like a reserve seating staple. Like any movie we talk about, could Rick Dalton have been
Could
in?
Rick Dalton be? All right.
Rosalie, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Boys.
Happy June-Sploitation.
Happy June-Sploitation. It's almost over.
I know it's like Scary Movie Month where you get sad that it's almost over and it would have been like June 3rd. And we'll be back next week. We have another theme month. We are picking up an episode we did maybe a few months ago. It was the Disney sports movie draft. I got more votes than Rob. Sorry, Rob. So we are going with my picks. The greatest game ever played, an extremely goofy movie, D2 The Mighty Ducks, Cool Runnings, and The Sandlot over the next 5 weeks. So we'll start with the greatest game ever played, starring Rick Dalton. And so until next time.
These seats are starring Rick Dalton.